Hey guys, I'm going to go over your study guide, Forces That Shape the Earth. You should be able to answer the following questions and put terms in the appropriate places. Number one, weathering is the breaking down of rocks and other materials on the surface of the Earth. What are the two basic types of weathering? They are physical weathering, which is also mechanical, and chemical weathering. Number two, erosion is the loosening of rocks and dirt and its movements from one place to another. I wanted you to identify three examples of erosion. I put way more, just make sure you have three. Landslide, mudslide, a valley carved, a cave formed, flooding, and abrasion. It could be wind abrasion or water abrasion. Those would be fine. Number three, deposition is the process by which sediments are laid down in new locations or deposited. Identify three examples of deposition. So I have put more than three again. So as long as you have three, that would be great. You should have a beach or dune formation, sandbar formation, delta formation, or a landslide finish. Not the actual act of the landslide, just the finish. Number four says physical weathering is when rocks are broken down into different shapes and smaller pieces. What are the five types of physical weathering, and label each example below? So let me scoot this up. So exfoliation, frost action, see how the rock is cracked here. Root pry, see this tree is growing here and cracked this rock. Landslide, I thought this was a crazy picture of going across the highway. Wind abrasion, so wind has picked up particles of soil and sand and blown them and eroded this rock. And water abrasion, which comes from when water has little particles in it and constant friction between water and the sediment. If you have questions about this page, please raise your hand. All right, let's look at our next page. Number 5 says, let me focus here. There it goes, a little better, sort of. Number 5 says chemical weathering is when actual changes in rock composition weakens the rock. What are the three types of chemical weathering, and label each example below? So these are just two pictures. They're both oxidation. These are just iron colored or red colored rocks, and this is just a chain that has rust. Remember, oxidation can really just be classified as rust. The other one is carbonation, and carbonation, remember, dissolves limestone or other minerals in the rocks. This is just a statue that has been just worn away, not from actual acid rain, but rain that is actually acidic, okay? And then the last one is plant acids. This is a picture of lichens and mosses on a rock. Number 6, water can dissolve most minerals and can form acids when mixed with certain gases. Right? Remember we talked about this. That's what makes rain slightly acidic. So a stable rock is a rock that's made of minerals that resist chemical weathering. Explain how the amount of time a rock is exposed to the air affects the rate of weathering. So that means like the amount of time that the rock is exposed to the atmosphere, how long does it take to erode? Okay, so the more the rock or the soil is exposed to weathering, so like rain, wind, moving water, ice, the faster it will break down into small sediments. So the longer it's out in the atmosphere, the faster it will break down. Number 7, what are the 5 agents of erosion? 7, gravity, wind, running water, glaciers, and waves. I need to change this clearly, and I will. Number 8, let's slide this up just a little bit. Number 8, what is a sediment? A sediment is just fragments of material that comes from weathering rock, like sand and silt, okay? Number 9, a sand dune is a mound of sand that is deposited by wind. Remember that a dune is deposited. Number 10, deflation is caused by wind when it removes loose material such as clay, silt, dust, and sand from the land. Do you have any questions about this page? Please raise your hand. All right. On the next page here, it says, what are 3 examples of mass wasting? Here are 3, landslide, mudslide, slope. Mass just means weight, right? So it's wasting, it's going down, getting pulled by gravity. Number 12, the finest particles of sand are called loess. I love that word. 13, this is false. A mature river is a river that has been developing for 10 years. It really has been developing for thousands of years, right? So a young river or an immature river would be maybe 10 years old. 14, a curve in a river is called a meander. You may or may not have actually labeled the actual diagram depending on how you put the study guide together, but if you just listed or matched the terms on the diagram, number 1 was river source, number 2 was the main river, number 3 was meander, number 4 was the river mouth, number 5 was the floodplain, number 6 was a tributary. Okay, and then if you added a delta, you would have added a delta down here. Remember, the delta is this sand or sediment that is deposited at the mouth of a river. Okay, any questions on this page? All right, going on to the next page. So number 16, waves are caused by winds, tides, and sometimes earthquakes. A shoreline is where a body of water meets the land. A beach is where eroded rock particles are deposited on a shoreline by a longshore current. So remember, beaches are deposited, and a longshore current, remember, goes along the shore, not straight into it. Okay? 17, what are 5 examples of surface features of the earth created by waves? A sea cave, a beach, an arch, a sea stack, or a sea cliff. All of those are created by waves. And then we moved into glaciers. Number 18, glaciers are large masses of moving snow. The 2 types of glaciers are alpine and continental. You could have continental and then alpine, it would have been fine. The type of glacier is formed that formed the Great Lakes is a continental glacier, a giant glacier during the Ice Age. And number 19, sediments deposited by glaciers is till. So this is just the definition of till. Mounds of till that are deposited by a glacier are called moraines. You can have a terminal moraine or a lateral moraine. Remember, lateral is on the side of a glacier, and a terminal moraine is on the end of a glacier. So a terminal moraine might be more here, and a lateral moraine might be more here. Okay, like where it's coming from. Number 21, I asked you how a kettle lake is formed, and it's really when a block of ice breaks off a glacier, becomes buried, and then when it melts, like, okay, so it's been sitting there for a while, so it creates an indent, right, and then it melts, and when it does, the water drains out, or it can fill up with water, but it creates a pit because that big chunk of ice has been sitting there for so long. Excuse me. Number 22, how do glaciers form valleys? They form it by abrasion, really, just pushing the rock out of the way. So I asked you to label the diagram of the glacier, and you maybe labeled it right on here if you did it on another separate sheet of paper, but here are the features. Number 1 was till, 2 was a kettle lake, 3 was rock, 4 moraine, 5, and the 4 would have been this one here. Sorry, I have to look at number 4 again. So number 4 would be a terminal moraine, whereas number 9 would be a lateral moraine. It just depends on, if you just called them a moraine, that's fine. 5 was a glacier, 6 was the tunnel, 7 was the meltwater stream, 8 was the drumlin, 9 was the lateral moraine, and 10 was the outwash plain, right? So like a floodplain, basically. Does anybody have any questions on this page? Okay, so last page coming up, hooray! All right, so number 24, rocks can change over time, like thousands of years. The rock cycle is a series of processes in which rock transforms from one form to another by geologic processes. Number 25, there are 3 main types of rocks. Rocks that are formed by layers of sediments buried under layers of more sediments that are cemented together after a long time are classified as sedimentary. Oh, I need to breathe. Sedimentary. Rock that is created by heat and pressure of an existing rock is classified as metamorphic rock. Rock that's formed by the cooling and hardening of magma or lava is classified as igneous. Okay, let's scooch this up. All right, 26. Describe how an igneous rock can become a sedimentary rock. There's more than one way, and you might have a different way than me too. So an igneous rock could weather and become sediments, and then over time it compacts and cements together and becomes a sedimentary rock. An igneous rock could be exposed to heat and pressure, not necessarily melting, but that turns it into a metamorphic rock, which could weather, which becomes sediments, which becomes a sedimentary rock. There might be another way or two, but use that rock cycle. Number 27, the theory of plate tectonics is supported by evidence that indicate there was once a supercontinent, Pangaea, 200 to 300 million years ago. What evidence helps confirm that Pangaea existed? So one of the pieces of evidence was that fossils found on different plates were in the same layers, and they actually connected, and those particular continents were so far apart that that actual being, that's now extinct, of course, could not have swum across the ocean, right? So matching fossils. The next piece of evidence was rock layers were identical on the continents, so like formed at the same time and in the same way, and then they split apart by when the plates divided or came together when they converged. And the third big piece of evidence was that the continents seemed to fit together like puzzle pieces, and you put them together and they actually kind of do. You have to remember that when you look at a map, all the blue is actually water covering land, and you can't see underneath there. But scientists take samples, and then they can match the rocks up, and you can tell whether or not they actually went together. All right, now is the time to ask any questions that you might have before the test. Good luck. You guys are going to rock this.